Okay, some of the things that I'm still working on the bass, it's an ongoing process. Um, Utilizing the double thumb down and up in conjunction with the other fingers of the right hand and the left hand, plucking and hammer on. But I'm just going to stay with the right hand for now. So on a G string, down and up, right? I get asked questions about this all the time, so here it is. Down and up. Practice that on every string. Okay? And eventually you want to make sure that you start playing notes with every technique. Because a lot of times we just learn a technique and we play it as a technique and that's it. But the goal is to make music. So with every technique, I want to always be able to turn it into music. So I always try to find a musical way to practice. So instead of just doing this for hours, maybe a scale. Just 159. All of a sudden it's starting to sound like music, but I'm getting some practice out of it also. So I always try to find a way to turn the techniques into music. Another thing that we can do with I haven't seen people doing much with the double thumb, but I do see people doing it with a pick, is to start playing with different choices rhythmically. So let's say we're going to go 2 downs and an up. That's endless. You can start doing 2 downs, 2 ups, whatever you want to do. Another thing that I like to do, this is one that I'm still figuring out how to utilize. So I'll show it to you so that you can figure out how to do it and then show me. Is you rake across one or all of the strings and then come up with the thumb. So a very easy way to make it sound like you're doing something that's harder than it really is. Just rub across and then come out. So you want to practice going over all of the strings, 1, 2, 3, 4, then up, 1, 2, 3, up, 1, 2, up, 1 up. Yeah. Okay. 4 strings, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So let's say I'm doing a groove. Another thing I haven't even figured out yet really how to do that well, but I figured I'd just throw something new in there. Like again, if you figure it out, come show me. Okay, that's still just dealing with down and up. Those are just a few ways of utilizing the down and up thumb in a way other than just going down and up. Okay, now when we start combining plucking, let's say down, up, and pluck, that's all on the G string. Want to learn how to do it all on a D string. A, E. Now when I'm doing it on these inner strings, the A and the D string, I don't have the luxury of when my thumb hits to let my fingers fly out here. Like when I'm just thumbing on the E string, my fingers can be out here. If I'm going to pluck on the inner strings, A and D, my fingers don't have the luxury of being out there. It's going to take too much effort and too much time to try to get them back in there. It can be done, but in my mind it's wasted motion. So as my thumb hits, my index finger's going in between the string, ready to pluck. So my thumb hits, And if I want to, pluck with index. Thumb, pluck, or thumb, up, pluck. And if you look, you'll see that index finger is in there, ready to go. Okay, and then the same thing with two plucks. Thumb, up, pluck, pluck. You also want to learn how to do all of that on one string. And if you want to start incorporating, more than just these fingers, you can do that also. But then start playing with rhythmic games. Let's say I go 2 downs with my thumb, then up, index, middle. Okay. Another neat game is to say we're going to play 4 notes, right? Down, up, index, middle, but we're going to accent every third one. So we got these 4 notes: down, up, pluck, pluck. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're going to accent every 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That gets kind of hard when you start to speed it up. Then you start doing things where you accent every 5th note, things like that. Kind of got that from Steve Bailey, because he does a thing when Steve's playing. He uses these 3 fingers, and he'll go forwards and backwards, like 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. But then he'll play around with different accents, where he's accenting where this is a 4-note pattern: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. He'll accent every 3rd or every 5th. And so I started incorporating that with the thumb technique. And the goal in this, whether you use it or not, the goal is to be able to have that freedom over the technique. So that if you practice all these techniques, the same way we have freedom over these fingers. When we use 2 fingers, we can play groups of 5s, 7s. We should be able to do the same thing with our thumbs and fingers, because the thumb is just another way to hit the string. Okay, most of us think of the thumb as being funk music in the key of E. Of course it's that, but it should be more also. So when you get control over these techniques, it means exactly that. You control the techniques rather than the techniques controlling you. So practice and have fun. Growing up on the bass, learning to play bass, there were a few main people that I studied. Stanley Clarke being one, probably the main one. Jaco Pastorius was another, and Larry Graham was another. And of course there were Bootsy, Louis Johnson, James Jamerson. Even though I didn't know who James Jamerson was, I just knew the music. There were many bass players who even to this day I don't know their names. I probably do know their names, but don't know that that was the guy that played that song, But there's so many songs that I grew up playing and didn't really know who the bass players were, like all the bass players that played the Jackson 5 material and a lot of the Motown, like James Jamerson and some of the other guys, like all the music that Carol Kay played on, or Chuck Rainey, so much music, I don't know them all. There's no way to know them all. They've played on so much things. But like... I mean, everyone knows that. I mean, I grew up on that stuff. all the Stanley stuff. You know, I mean, that stuff just really helped me define my own style. And getting into my pentatonic, getting that from Stanley Clarke also. So Stanley was probably one of the main guys that I studied and learned just about everything that I could get my hands on. You know, even the stuff he did on acoustic bass, Spanish phases for string bass, you know. I didn't even own an acoustic bass, but I would mess around with that stuff. You know, all that stuff. Stanley's just the man. He still is. I think everyone knows that. And I never knew how to get this next harmonic, but I figured out my own way by hitting it up here with my thumb. I also found that you could fret this note and stretch, which I could never do. Hard stuff for me, but that was always the easier way. But Jaco, when I first heard that, I had a hard time believing it was a bass when I first heard Portrait of Tracy. Man. But I stayed up all night, literally until sunup, until I learned that song. You know, and I didn't learn it exactly right, I'm sure, but in searching for it, that's what's developed my whole harmonics, using the overtones on the bass. That's where it all came from, that one night of study on Jaco's Portrait of Tracy. And what I learned from that, there's a couple chords that I still use, and it's in the key of G or C. I got that from Jaco, and same thing, fourth down. All right? So you get, or here. So C, G. All right? And then I realized also from that song, Portrait of Tracy, that these two harmonics can be taken down a half step, and they still work. So, that's pretty. That flat 5 in there. So all that I got from that song. I also realized that a lot of these harmonics that you get from the third, between the 3rd and 5th fret, I tell you what, we'll just stick with these for now, the same ones. That pattern, it's like a backwards diagonal, kind of going from there to there. Right? I see it more as a shape than I see it as notes. I know that shape will work in C or G. And whatever works on these two notes is also going to work a 4th lower. Okay? But I can take that shape and invert it. So instead of here, and now it gets a little weird, but I get here. All right, same thing, a 4th lower. All right, same thing, a half step down gets real weird. All right, so from there I have 4 chords, then these 4. Pretty stuff, and all that's within these 2 frets, 3 frets, and I got that all from that song, Portrait of Tracy. You know, and that all of that is only from the here. You know, right here, there's a chord. You know, it's all right in the beginning of the tune. It's amazing what can be gotten from that song. And that's just one of many jobs.